Hello, my name is Barbara Field. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in Sacramento, California. And welcome to my channel, The Journey of Grief, Becoming Us Without Them. I started this channel so that we could all have a place to share our grief, all kinds of grief, and to know that exactly how you're grieving is the perfect way you should be grieving. So we have panels of people that are grieving losses, and we have experts and individual interviews. And I hope that you can all find something that you need on this page. And today we have some ladies who are going to be sharing with us the very not fun anticipatory grief. Each of these ladies is caring about someone who is disappearing right before their very eyes. And we're going to try to talk about what that's like, including the hard parts of what that's like. And we hope that you'll find something that you need here in the brave sharing of these ladies. And so I'm going to ask each one of you to introduce yourselves and the person that you're caring about. And let's start with Patty.
Okay, my name is Patty, and I'm taking care of my husband, Jeff, and he had a stroke a year and a half ago, and he got dementia from it. And to say my life has changed is a lie. It is the hardest thing. I can't even tell you about it, but I will try through this. So that's it for now.
Okay, Arielle.
Hi, my name is Arielle, and I care for my mom. She's 80 years old. She was diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment in the summer of 2022, and she was diagnosed with two forms of dementia, Alzheimer's and vascular dementia in September of 2024. And at that time, like I said, it was mild, and in July, it turned into advanced this summer, and she's now been placed in memory care. And that's about it for now.
Okay, Elizabeth, how about you?
Hi, my name is Elizabeth, and the person that is losing themselves is my mother, and she had a temporal lobe stroke in 2017. However, we believe there was some other form of dementia that was creeping in before that time. And now I had taken care of her full time for 3 months, and she was literally kidnapped by my father and my brother-in-law and my oldest sister and taken to memory care.
In another state?
Well, first she was in our state in California, and then she was moved 2 states away. So it's basically a 10-hour drive if I want to see her, or a flight, which is, by the time you park, check in, wait, it's about the same as 10 hours, it feels like. My frustrations are not with my lovely mother. She had always stated that she wished to remain in her home with private caregivers, and she had the resources for that. And I was managing a team of 3 caregivers at the time, but obviously the rest of the family, as led by my father, had different ideas. So the last year and a half I have spent pretty much in tears. So that's where we are.
Okay, Arielle, you wanted us to talk about so what to do with yourself after your loved one goes in memory care. You've been caring for her at home. And so how do you know the balance between visiting and taking care of yourself? And let's start with that.
So she had a in-home caregiver, well, many, but that started in September of 2024. And that was very interesting, trying to manage the caregivers and manage the finances and manage what was going on with my mother. And so she was just placed in memory care August 1st. And it's been, you know, when you're caring for someone with cognitive impairment issues, at least this was my experience. It was, you're always thinking about, could they need this? Would they need that? Are they going to do this? Are they going to do that? It doesn't matter if you're in the shower, having a bowl of cereal, at a 12-step meeting, trying to sleep, waking up in the middle of the night. Those are the thoughts that would come to my mind all the time. And now that she's in somewhere safe, that she has this sense of community and connection in, that's very comforting. At the same time, I couldn't just turn that off. I don't know how to turn that off. I was at a 12-step picnic last Saturday. My aunt had gone to visit my mom, and my mom said she was tired, just wanted to lay down. And that was very out of character. Usually she wants to go out and enjoy the world. And so, you know, I pondered it for a little while. Then I'm sitting in the middle of the meeting in the park, and I get up to go make a phone call to the caregivers at the facility to find out if she's okay. You know, I can't even sit still for an hour without having to reach for the phone and find out what's going on and is she all right, you know. And the bottom line, she was fine. She was just tired. And so the balance between when to take care of yourself, go visit, how many times a week. You know, I've tried 3 times a week. I've had COVID this last week, so we set up a 6 p.m. FaceTime visit, you know, and that's been helpful. But I figured I would try 2 to 3 times a week in person and then phone calls every day. And I still struggle, you know, so.
Yeah, because it's a full-time job taking care of someone. And like you said, like 24 hours a day worrying about them, and listening for their sounds and their breathing. And then to have that gone, your nervous system is going to take a minute to figure out that it doesn't have to do all that all the time. Yeah, so how about you, Elizabeth? Pretty much the same thing, only it was much more drastic in your case.
Yeah. Uh, there were only 2 issues that were really difficult. My mom was very easy. The 2 issues were she never wanted anyone to touch her nails, and then they would grow very long, which was very out of character for her. And the other issue was showering. She didn't want anyone to help her shower. And when we tell her how long it had been, she still refused. So we had, at that point, we had hospice coming in, giving her sponge baths. But I find that I don't worry about her at all. What I worry about is my father is in assisted living above her in the same building, and he is 93 with terminal cancer, and she is 88. And they're both soon, November and December, going to be 89 and 94. My concern is, what is my father going to do next? So that's what I worry about. I don't worry about my mom. She's so easygoing, and last time I talked to her on the phone, they had successfully trimmed her nails, and they were, I guess they're even having trouble with it at this facility. So, but she's just, you know, she's very easy, and
So let's just talk about right at first when she wasn't with you anymore, that missing, that having been with her all the time and thought about her all the time, and now you're just here with all this time.
yeah, yeah. I haven't been functioning well at all. So, I've tried to get back out there, and I do it for a while, and then I get very sad. So if I see something on the television that reminds me of how she might have decorated a room, I'll cry. So it's been a lot of alone time and grieving what she was, that she was a mile away.
Thank you. And then Patty, you're sort of at the opposite end of that. You're in the stage where you would just be thrilled to death with some free time.
That is true. That is true. I've never been this busy in my whole life, but very little of it's for me. So I have anger and resentment about the life that I've lost. And I feel alone and isolated because I'm basically alone when I'm with him because he's not there. And I'm also, since I can't leave him alone, I can't go be with people that could help me deal with it. And so it's a quandary.
Yeah, and let's just talk about that anger. That was kind of your topic, and that's a good segue into that topic. So it's hard to give ourselves permission to be both people. There's the version of us that gets it. Their brain is betraying them. They're being stolen from their own life. They're not doing this on purpose. Although sometimes when I was caring for my mom, I was pretty sure she was doing it on purpose. And so you feel all of those things, watching a person that you love disappear, grieving the loss of what you did have, grieving the loss of what was there. And then at the same time, dealing with that anger. And it's not necessarily at them, but it's still huge. And it's hard to hold both things simultaneously, to be profoundly grieving the loss of someone that you love, and to be so furious at the injustice of dementia and the way that it steals people from themselves and everyone they love. So
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit more about trying to battle those two things of being sad and furious simultaneously.
Well, I feel tremendous guilt about being angry about it because he, as you said, he did nothing, he can't help it. It just happened. So I I've never felt really alone, and I feel alone. And so, but he's also, I'm thankful that he is a kind person with dementia. I mean, he's turned even softer than he was very mellow before, but now he's like very tender. But which I'm thankful for because I know that some aren't. But but I feel guilty for the feelings that I have towards him, the anger, like, that, and it's selfish because it's me I'm thinking about, not him. I'm going, poor me, poor me. Look at what happened to me, not what happened to him. Because he doesn't, I think he knows he had a stroke because I do tell him, when he doesn't get something, I said, you had a stroke and you lost that part. And but I still I feel pretty guilty about that. And I kind of, I feel anger. I feel anger more than guilt, but they're really tied up there together.
For
Because
sure.
yeah, because they're the I don't know, one's hiding from the other.
Exactly. And so it's a shame that we're not very good at this life and death thing. Other countries are better at life and death. And that it's okay, your life died too.
Mhm.
When that happened to him, it happened to you.
Yeah.
And it's okay for you to grieve your life, your lost life, and be angry about what was taken from you and what was stolen from you, and be angry about putting on involuntary hold. All of those things are okay. And it's also occasionally okay if you're a little miffed at him, even though you know he's not doing it on purpose. It's just a shame that in our country, you have to feel guilty about grieving your life. Your life died. And we feel guilty that we can't grieve ourselves and grieve them at the same time. That's so. And it's okay to deeply, deeply mourn what was taken from us.
I
So,
remember,
Arielle, would you like to talk about that?
what was that, Barbara?
Would you like to
Yeah.
chime in about that?
Yeah, what I was going to say was, first I want to say my mom was larger than life. She was a singer in the 60s, 70s. I grew up in, watching her sing from the side of from somewhere in the room, you know what I'm saying? Like always, when I could. And to watch her slowly, day by day, disappear has been the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my entire life. And it's not about me. It sounded like that was about me, but just to watch her slowly go away. Um, and I cherish our times together now. Like that's when I get to see her, I get to give her a hug and a kiss when I say hello and when I say goodbye. But I understand about the anger. I was angry for a long, long time, and I probably still am. I'm sure. But there came a point when I realized not to be mad. Well, for me, be mad at the disease. Don't be mad at the person, and don't be mad at yourself. Right? That's just been my experience. And we were selling our house in 2023. She'd gotten herself in a little bit of trouble, and the dementia probably, didn't help, obviously, and I just didn't know what I was doing. I had to grow up really quick and take care of a lot of stuff that I wasn't prepared for. And so I had anger issues about that. That was, my father helped me out from, San Jose on the phone all the time. And I was spewing all my anger to him about this is happening this way. She doesn't understand this, all this stuff. And I was very, very, it was just like this nest egg that was constantly unhappy. It was just awful. So I get that piece too well, unfortunately. And until you have somebody in your life that you're taking care of, you cannot understand what it's like. I mean, people can sit there and say X, Y, and Z, but thank God for the Alzheimer's Dementia Caregiver support group I went to. They saved my life. And my therapist that I have now helped me get to that point where I was willing to go to a virtual support group every month. And I still go.
That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right, though. My mom was so smart that when she read everything at the bookstore in the library that she wanted to read, she would read the encyclopedia. And she could stand and do her ironing and answer every question on Jeopardy and just whip through crossword puzzles just like nothing. And then to watch her descend to the level that she descended to, that was so horrible to watch. And just not, like Patty said, my mom was actually kind of a mean, crappy bitch. But with the dementia, she became sweet. So that was sort of the one bonus of the whole deal. The best version of a mother I ever had was the demented one. But it was just awful to watch that wonderful mind just slowly disappear. So how about you, Elizabeth? How about that struggle between anger and grief?
Where I commented earlier that most of my anger is with my father and the two siblings and the brother-in-law that supported him. I have anger with my mother that is deeper. Anger because I remember the times when I tried to get her motivated to protect herself and her personal inheritance from her parents. And I'd suggest something, let's go see an attorney and, a few other things. And I was told no, or or she just never got around to it. And it's really cost her. So I'm very angry that she didn't take care of herself, because she didn't. But she trusted my father, who's her husband of 60 plus years, to follow her wishes, and he did not. So then I go back to, I'm furious with my father. And furious with both of them that we grew up in a home that was so conflict ridden. And my mother saw me as her confidant. And the depression I feel now at 64 is so, it feels like the whole house is on my shoulders, my house. And that's how big the depression is. So I'm furious that we didn't grow up in a functional system, and now it's certainly spun out of control and has crashed and burned.
Yeah, that's hard. And that's kind of a good topic, is how does family show up? So my family, we're a little orphany. My parents were very messy too, so we don't spend all that much time together. But in crises, we really rock. So all the siblings helped with mom. They took turns with various parts of it. They all showed up at the end. Everyone made it to the memorial in Louisiana. And then recently, when my brother died in October of 23, same thing. Everybody helped to be with him at the end so he didn't die by himself. And so in a crisis, my family is really good. It's just the day-to-day enjoying human beings that we do very well. And so how about you, Arielle? How are extended family available, not available, helpful, not helpful?
So, like I was talking about my father earlier, being down in the Bay Area, very helpful on the phone, and he regretted he couldn't do more, but he was the best support I had during these times, from 2022 forward, with help with her, with selling the house, all that. Very helpful, video calls, all kinds of different things. Also, uh, they're my extended families, my 12-step family. They were extremely patient with me, listening to me and helping me try to figure things out, and just taking me out for coffee when, taking me out to a meeting, whatever. That was very helpful, having that kind of community, and still do, obviously. But my brother lives in Texas, and that's not her child. That's my dad's son from a different marriage. And I would call my brother and talk to him, and I was trying to urge him to come out and pay her a visit before things got too terribly far down the road. And he didn't come, and I get it, he's got a family and everything like that. He's in Texas, for goodness sake. But divine timing, he came out right when it was needed, which was the weekend of her transition into the facility. And I mean, thank God he was here for that, because he helped her so much. So comforting for him to be here for my mom. And my mom has always loved him ever since he came into our lives when I was 16, and they've always had a really big closeness. And so that's really the only family components I've had. And other than that, it's just been me. And I was able to, thank God I'm sober, I was able to step up to the plate and help with the emotional support and the 12-step support I've been given and granted.
Oh, that's awesome. How about you, Patty? How is family showing up for you?
Well, I don't have any siblings. My sister died when her kids were young, and so I don't have any siblings. But all I really have is my daughter, and she's about an hour away, and she tries very hard to be involved, and has come up to help me with certain things. But she also has 2 little kids and a job, and her life is insane. So part of me doesn't want to make it worse for her. So, but I need her. And so she's very accommodating and does it. I don't have, it's not hard to talk with her about it. But it's just, I wish I did have siblings, then we could share it.
Yeah. So as your journey is sort of unfolding itself, kind of on hold because you don't know what's going to happen next and when it's going to happen next.
Yeah, and just the workings of our household. Um, like the thing that he can't do anymore. He used to be the fix-it guy, so he's no
Mhm.
longer knows how to fix anything. So I never knew how to fix anything. So, so then I wait for my daughter's husband to come up or something, but that's difficult. Or I hire someone. And one of my husband's idiosyncrasies in this stroke thing is that he doesn't know what he used to do in a day. So when he's here, he just either stares at the floor, stares at the ceiling, or watches TV. But he doesn't know how to use the remote. So he gets into all the inner workings of the TV. So our TV is broken a lot because sometimes I unplug it and plug it back in and then it works. But sometimes it doesn't. And so I'm not going to keep getting the TV fixed and fixed, but I get mad at him about that because I can't, I don't know what to do about it.
Yeah.
Patty,
Yeah.
Patty, I would find my mother watching some Spanish telenovelas, and she doesn't speak Spanish. I say, Mom, why are you watching that? She goes, oh, it's interesting.
My mom would have conversations with the television. So if someone on TV asked someone else a question, my mom would look at me and say, "Oh, I don't know. Why are they asking me?"
It's cute.
Yeah, very cute.
Yeah. So Arielle, what are the day-to-day things as you're suspended in animation, the things that you can move forward with so that you're ready when the end comes, the things you can't move forward with because the end could be years. People with dementia can live for a long time. And so that going forward, but not going forward, how are you managing all that?
So one thing they did say when it became advanced in July is they gave me a timeline, which I thought was kind of interesting, but that was based on how quickly she advanced. And that has to do with the vascular dementia. And a lot of people don't know what that even is. And that has to do with your heart, if you have sleep apnea, if it's untreated, heart conditions that are untreated. And my mom had a heart murmur for we don't know how long before she got a TAVR, transcatheter aortic valve replacement. Anyway,
Wow.
all that to say, what so they gave my mom 2 to 4 years and less if it continues to advance as it has been advancing. And so my suspension things are I mean, right now I'm in transition with my employment, and that's kind of interesting. But with her somewhere safe and happy, that makes things not so in suspension for me right now. I think definitely if she was here with me, that'd be a little bit different. But I guess if I were to find a job working out of the county somewhere and wanted to move, that is definitely a moment of suspension. I mean, I don't have to necessarily stay here in Folsom if I don't want to, but so there's an example. My therapist had brought that up to me at one point, like you could move, you could go anywhere, but now's obviously not the time for that. So, yeah.
Yeah. And how about you, Elizabeth? What are the things that are like in suspended animation as you wait to see what will happen next?
I just feel terror. I felt a lot of terror. And once again, it's not about my mom because I feel very fortunate. She's not at the dementia stage where she can no longer be verbal. She's still very verbal. I don't think she's gone that far past what she was when she had her stroke. And, but the terror is, what is my dad going to do? So that's what I could sell my home and I could move. But I'm waiting for my part of my mom's estate, which sounds very callous, but I don't want her to go anywhere. And she's still I just still see a lot of her left in her mind. I mean, yep, there's things she's forgotten. And a part of me has a very bizarre attitude that if we don't forget some things, we'll never be able to leave this life. I really feel that. So she is losing parts of herself, but there's still a lot there. And yet my father, I know, is now going after the grandchildren's portion of my grandparents' estate. And I'm one of the grandchildren. So I kind of feel like I'm in suspension until we figure out if they're going to be able to break into the trust and take our inheritance. By them, I mean my father, my brother-in-law, because they've already tried once to break into it. So in California, and now I believe they're trying in a different state. They're trying in Idaho. So, and then a lot of terror,
Yeah.
because, yeah. So, and I can tell my mother this is happening, and she won't remember, the next moment so yeah, I feel a little terrorized
Yeah.
because it's yeah. Go ahead.
And how about you, Patty? Any other things that are kind of stuck on hold because you can't move forward and you can't resolve them? And
Well, we don't have enough money for him to go into a memory care place. So I have no way out. And so that's my biggest dilemma. If I knew that, once he gets to a certain point, then we could send him to live somewhere else. That would set my mind at ease, but we don't have that option now. So it's frightening to think that
yeah,
I have to do this for 10 or 20 more years. I don't know, because I don't think he's gotten worse since his stroke. So this could be a long road.
Patty, I had a friend who was taking care of both of his parents, and his mother had dementia and his father had Alzheimer's, and the mother died first, which was quite shocking for everyone. And so it was just he and his father, and he would call on his friends and say, I got to get out. I got to get out. And so I've gone over and spent the night there and helped his father, and literally, pulling his pants down and making him sit on the toilet. And so there are people that will help you
Yeah,
if
no,
you ask.
I
You know
have
that, though.
I have friends that, have offered that, and friends that have come over.
Good.
I do take him to a council on aging respite program
Okay.
4 days a week for 4 hours. And that's incredible. But in terms of really doing something that's fun, the time limitations are, make it hard. And even to the point where I go, it's not even worth it, because I have to do all this to try to plan something that's fun, making it not that fun anymore.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I get it.
absolutely. Yeah. So, what do you guys wish? Like, if we could change the services that are available to people that are stuck in these kind of situations, services for the elderly, services for, I mean, there's this funky little place where you make too much money for the good stuff and not enough money to pay for it yourself. So what do you wish that society, the government, the community what do you wish, how would you change the world so that people like you and the people that you love could get more support?
Are you talking to me?
Sure.
Okay. Well, if you jump through all sorts of hoops, Medi-Cal does cover care, but it covers a certain percentage of care. But the process is so complicated and challenging that my daughter was going to help me with that. And so we went, we kind of put all the info we had together, and then it just was completely overwhelming. And so I just kind of gave up on that. And I guess if I wish there were people that are knowledgeable in that, would let themselves be known, and they can guide you and help you fill out, because apparently the form you have to fill out for Medi-Cal is some huge book looking thing. And then there's a thing called Spousal Impoverishment Act. So it's where the government won't let the spouse of the person with dementia become impoverished by putting them in a place, but they have to be nursing home, skilled nursing qualified, which my husband is not yet. And apparently that is going to end at the end of this year, that
Program.
program. So, but that's what we need. And then we need people to be able to, there to be people that can help you, guide you, because it's overwhelming. I don't know how anyone does that by themselves. I have a friend who paid
Try to
$15,000 to get an attorney to help her.
So I have friends who work in geriatric care. I'll check in with them and see what kind of resources they have, and I'll put it in the show notes. I'll send it to you, but I'll also put it in the show notes.
Thank you.
How about you, Arielle? What is your wish?
So I was just, as Patty was talking, it reminded me of certain things, certain avenues that were helpful, and some of the avenues were overloaded as well. So with community resources, that there would be more resources for them so that they could in turn, what one community resource offered me was respite care, attorney, a consult with an attorney at no charge, and I forget what else they offered. And I was really excited. I was like, yes, this is great. And then nothing, and I get it. The system is overloaded right now. One of the things I wish could be better, which I understand, it's just the caregiver. I don't know how to say what I'm trying to say without sounding disrespectful, but these people are coming in your home, they're taking care of your loved one while you're at work, and you don't know what's going on, and I wish there was some type of structure in whether it be hiring or, that kind of thing. I don't know if I'm making sense with that one, but also the Alzheimer's Association, they're open 24/7. They will always answer the phone, and I'm grateful for that, because you could be in the middle of the night struggling with something, and they'll talk to you. I also think there should be more resources than just the Alzheimer's Association. Like there should be something else, just more resources, period. I don't know how else to say it. There's so many different areas we need help in as caring for our loved one.
True.
Can I interrupt for a moment?
Uh-huh.
There is here in Sonoma County, there is something called Redwood Caregivers Resource Center. And apparently there are these caregiver resource centers all over the place in California. And they they have seminars about caretaking and the issues and all that kind of stuff. But they also give grants for care. So that's where I'm getting the Council on Aging paid for. I got a $1,000 grant just recently, and then
Oh,
I got a
goodness.
$2,800 grant last year. And it's like they're just, and it's for me to get help. And
Oh,
so if that would help any of you guys, maybe Google Caregiver Resource Center, and there, because I'm sure that there's probably one where you are,
Mhm.
where you guys are. So
Thank
When I
you.
had my mom, she went to this place called Triple R Senior Care. It was like summer camp for grown-ups. And so she was living with me. So all of her, Social Security and her retirement from her last husband was just enough to pay for it. And so then that left me with just food, and she didn't eat that much. And then she had the insurance for her medications. So that was like practically just a break even. And it was wonderful. I could
yeah,
drop her off on my way to work. They did arts and crafts. They used geriatric interns who were just all fresh and happy and perky and out. And when I would get there to pick her up at night, she didn't want to come home with me. They would have to trick her into the car. And then on
No.
Saturdays and Sundays when they weren't open, she would be like, "Don't we have to go? Go where, Mom? Don't we have to go? I know we need to go." And she just wanted to go. And so it was great. She would jump out of the car and bound in there. It wasn't like taking a preschooler to screaming and kicking, chunking into the door and making a run for it. So that was so helpful. And toward the end, they opened up, I think, one Saturday morning a month. So you could have a morning. But if you, like, I was working full time, so that wasn't time off for me. It was just no worry-free time for me. So that Saturday morning of like Patty getting a whole 4 hours all to myself, that was a big deal. But my husband was around, so he was very helpful as well. I can't even imagine doing all that without that extra set of hands. And if I couldn't get her up in the morning, he worked almost opposite of me. So he would get up and come and con her because he could get her to do anything. And so we'd have her laughing, and then I could dress her. And so I can't even imagine what it would have been like by myself, like you're all doing. And so, Elizabeth, how would you want the system to be more supportive? Like during the 3 months when you were caring for your mom, what would have been helpful?
During those 3 months, I can't really say specifically during those 3 months. I was exhausted because you really do have to manage the caregivers, because some of them are excellent and some of them are worthless. And so you have to be there to observe and to participate and forget about the cooking. I mean, I had to spend most of my time cooking, and not having had children, I don't have any quick recipes. So, but the most difficult part was that I couldn't even get an attorney to represent my mother. And my father's attorney was very upfront with me that he did not represent my mother, just my father. But because my father had very cleverly gone and had her, I think over a Zoom appointment, had her declared, what is it, lacks ability for daily activities. No one would, yeah, thank you. No one would touch her. And they said, your father has all the cards. And boy, did he ever. And the other thing is that she had him declared her power of attorney. And I was told at one time by social services that could be dissolved. But then my father went and counterpunched and tried to accuse me of elder abuse. Anyways, it was a nightmare. So that being declared incompetent, it's all, it gives zero power to the person that's been declared incompetent.
And
It's like
when you're in
they're
family says the kids have their own attorney. Wouldn't it be great if the county
Yeah.
is an attorney to the elder?
Yes. And it's very needed because there are a lot of people doing a lot of things like my dad is.
Yeah.
And he's spending all her money on expensive attorneys and she doesn't get one. Where is the justice in that? And it's not like she has Alzheimer's and can't speak anymore. She still has cognitive abilities. So she can't, do certain things, but
So at the end of my videos, I always ask people for 1 minute of wisdom. People just fast forwarded to the end. What is the most important thing that you want people who are in your same situation? What do you want to give them as a gift? The most important gift that you could give to someone in your situation. What's your 1 minute wisdom? And let's start with Arielle.
I know I keep saying this, but I just contact the Alzheimer's Association if you can. And, I've called them on the phone and I've gone through their website. I've attended their support groups. They've referred me, they gave me a list of caregivers, in-home caregivers to choose from. And then they gave me a couple phone numbers to some resources to help me find facilities for mom. And so like they have just been this umbrella over me this whole time, and if you haven't reached out to them, I would just encourage you to reach out and ask for any and all type of help that you need. And they will tell you things like come into those support groups, you will learn things you didn't know you needed to know. And the facilitators are so educated and so helpful. So that's just the one thing I would wish for everybody.
Oh, thank you. How about you, Patty? What is the one thing you want people to know to just make this easier or normalize it for people?
Well, I do think the resources are key, and on Council on Aging offers similar things to what Elizabeth was just talking about. And they also have an attorney. I haven't talked with their attorney yet, but they have all sorts of programs that can be of assistance. And then the Redwood, the Caregivers Resource Center, amazing. I can't even believe that those people exist. Who would think that there's a organization that realizes what we're going through and that it's worthy of having a business about it. Anyway,
That's
it's amazing.
great.
Yeah.
Thank you. And how about you, Elizabeth? What is your 1 minute wisdom for people struggling in the battle that your family is waging against itself?
I am not an evangelical Christian. I'd say I'm a closeted Christian, but my 1 minute spiel is God is real. And whether it's your intuition that you should listen to, which I firmly believe in listening to your intuition, but also spending time reading the Bible and in prayer has kept me in my body. Otherwise, I would have killed myself. So my 1 minute is, if you don't have a faith, find one. Doesn't have to be based on Christianity. It could be Hinduism. It could be Buddhism. It could just be meditating with a guru. But that has kept me sane. So
Something outside of yourself.
yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yes, very true. Very true.
Okay, well, thank you so much. It is such an honor that you all trusted me with this. I know, Patty, this is practically your first Zoom experience.
Oh,
and
congratulations.
Thank you very
Nice.
much. Thank you very much.
jumped on here and did this with us. And thanks for your wisdom and your honesty. And I appreciate very, very much that you did this with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks for
Barbara.
having me.